sisters, wassalamu alaikum, peace be on all of you. Hallelujah. Stephen Harper and Jason Kenney have failed. They tried to stop this meeting happening this evening, but instead 100, 1,000, 10,000 times the audience is watching this meeting this evening because of their attempts to silence us. It is poetic justice that the message that I would have brought to the people of Canada directly from the front line in Gaza, from the anti-war movement in Britain, and from the anti-war movement here in the United States of America, from where I'm broadcasting, will now be heard and seen by so many more people than Jason Kenney could ever have imagined when he came out with this cowardly, foolish, and I believe utterly counterproductive ban on me from joining you in Canada. I have visited Canada many times and have had the honor to speak on platforms and in auditoria with many of you. And I promise you this, I'm on standby. And the minute you think that this ban can be broken, I'll grab my toothbrush, head for Heathrow Airport, and fly to Toronto to speak to you in person at the drop of a hat. Jason Kenney sounds like some class of Irishman to me. Well, as half an Irishman myself, I say this: come out and debate with me like a man, face to face. Let's book the biggest hall in Canada, and you and I will debate these issues of war and peace, of freedom of speech and censorship. And you won't be able to hide behind your spokesman or the so-called Jewish so-called Defense League. You won't be able to hide behind your immigration officials who can't speak up for themselves. You won't even be able to hide behind the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. There'll just be you and me and the Canadian public. Come out and debate me like a man, Jason Kenney, or are you too cowardly to face the public and defend your views and the way you are betraying all that was great about Canada, all the values that Canada represented in the world? Canada was a loved country in the world, and your government seems determined to make Canada a part of the axis that used to run from Pennsylvania Avenue through Downing Street to the cabinet room in occupied Jerusalem. You seem determined to add Ottawa to that axis of evil. But you know what? I think you got more than you bargained for when you got your spokesman to make that cowardly briefing to the dirty Rupert Murdoch newspaper in London called The Sun. I don't think you imagined that this would capture the interest and the imagination of your countrymen and women in the way that it has. Do you know what, Mr. Kenney? I think it's all spectacularly backfired. And here's why. It's just not credible to call a 5 times elected 23-year member of the British Parliament a terrorist or a security threat. It's just not credible to call someone who toured your country without incident on several previous occasions a terrorist or a security threat. It's just not credible, Mr. Kenney, to call a man currently touring the United States of America playing to packed audiences, north, south, east and west of the United States of America, a terrorist or a security threat. It must have come as something of a surprise to the Homeland Security Department here in the US to hear that they'd admitted and were allowing to tour such a dangerous man as you have made me out to be. It must have come as some surprise to the Speaker of the House of Commons in London that he's been harbouring these 23 years past such a dangerous man as you have made me out to be. But the truth is, Mr. Kenny, you know that I'm no terrorist. You know that I'm no security threat. In fact, the real terrorists in this picture are the right-wing occupation government of Israel that you seem determined to be an ambassador for. The real threat to Canada's security, and indeed the security of the world, is the unchallenged occupation of Palestinian land, which has destabilized the entire region and threatens the peace of the whole world. The real danger I was to you, Mr. Kenny, is that I was coming from the Gaza Strip to tell people in Canada, as your brave Jewish woman voices have been doing in the church this evening, just exactly what is the result of the siege and the bombardment of the Gaza Strip, which you and your government were the first in the world to set the scene for and to support. But thanks to the wonders of modern technology, thanks to the organizational genius of James Clark and Ali Mallah and all the other organizers of this event this evening, thanks to my friends here in New York City, 20 cities in Canada, and people all around the world watching this live are going to learn what you tried to stop me saying. Let me begin by dealing with this question of freedom of speech, because I hear some people saying that I'm some kind of hypocrite because I opposed the leader of the French Nazi party, Jean-Marie Le Pen, coming to Britain some years ago. I'm not one who believes that freedom of speech is absolute. I deny the right to shout fire in a darkened cinema. And I deny the right of Holocaust-denying racists like Le Pen to be given freedom of speech. But I don't fall into that category, Mr. Kenny. I have been an anti-racist all of my life, and the people listening to me in that church this evening are exactly the same. It's our movement which stands against racism. It was our movement that stood against apartheid in South Africa when the right wing in the United States and in Great Britain, and who knows, maybe even in Canada, were regarding Mr. Nelson Mandela as a terrorist. It's our movement that cares about